Welcome back to Native Speaker. Talking about solutions, changing approach. Sometimes our critical analysis requires us to point out the need for change in the way somebody does something and why they should do it. This presentation shows you how to do exactly that. First of all, we're going to need our subject and then a verb combination. Now in the verb combination you'll notice that we can use a modal verb, an auxiliary verb, a phrasal verb or a main verb. Here there's just one verb. We're talking about change, so we're going to stay with change and maybe one or two synonyms. So the government changed, we have to change, companies may have to change, the government will need to adapt, a synonym of change, Britain had to change in the past, society may need to change, suggesting the future. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher should have changed. So when you use should in the past, you need have, and the past participle form of the verb, which is the third form, changed, 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 changing. The farming community may be forced to change, and food companies really should be forced to change. Now you're going to need the personal pronoun that matches the subject and the word approach. It's very important here that the subject is in agreement with the personal pronoun. So for example, the government changed their approach. We have to change our approach. Companies may have to change their approach. Students often get this wrong, so make sure you're not that student. You'll notice down here that I said the government will need to adapt its approach and the government changed their approach. Government is a group noun, and that means it can be treated like a plural or a singular. I often say to my students, consider this like your hand. The hand is singular, the fingers are plural, and you can think of the single entity of the hand and all the fingers together, or you can think of it as the fingers doing their work. And that's what we do with group nouns like government, team, crew, etc. So the government changed their approach, or the government will need to adapt its approach. If you do that, you just have to make sure that any other pronouns you use later over here relating to that subject are in the same agreement as your original personal pronoun choice here. Is there much of a difference between this? Not really, no. I mean, sometimes we say to students, well, this is they're all thinking the same and this is they're thinking differently. But to be honest, native speakers don't really even think when they were doing this. It just pops out of our mouth. That's the honest truth. The preposition, of course, with approach is to, and if we're going to use an action, then we're going to use verb ing, because after approach to, that's the rule. You'll notice that dealing with, addressing, tackling, ensuring, producing, a lot of our old friends from high value verb list and the fixing verb list make an appearance here. Sourcing, this is a fancy schmancy version of finding. Okay, finding, that's another way, but it's finding to do something with it. So you might source clients, you might source raw materials, you might source something. Okay, so that's the start of it. The government changed their approach to dealing with what? And then you'll talk about your object and complement here, dealing with COVID, climate change. So often there'll be a problem or an issue that needs management of some kind, and that will often go here, like homelessness. So the government changed their approach to dealing with COVID. Now we could stop here if we wanted to, but we want to develop our sentence. And in this case, we're going to use the development link from the to family, like as a means of, in order to, and so as to. So I've picked these three guys and I've used them all. Down here, I've used so as not to. If I want to make in order negative, I'd say in order not to. But if I wanted to make as a means of negative, I would put not in here. Okay? Now, these guys must work with a verb. These link phrases as a means of, in order to, so as to need to work with a verb. That verb must match them. So as a means of always works with verb ing, as a means of ensuring, as a means of maintaining. But in order to and so as to work with infinitive. So in order to, so as to. In order to, so as to. They work with infinitive. As a means of works with verb ing. Be careful, a lot of students tend to say as a mean of. No, 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 no. Don't do that. That's bad. Okay? As a means of ensuring. Ensuring what? Well, now we need an object and complement over here to give more information. Ensuring what? An end. What kind of end? A swift end. To what? The pandemic. So there's lots of information here. Swift is another word for rapid or quick or prompt. In order to avoid what? Serious consequences. When? In the near future. So as to adapt to what? The new challenges. What kind of new challenges? Facing businesses. When? Today. So a lot of the question words of who, where, when, why, what, how much, what kind of, they'll be answered in the object and complement. So this structure lends itself to you developing your sentences more intelligently and more fully. A common complaint from lecturers, even secondary school teachers, examiners, is that language students very often don't give enough detail in their sentences. And here you can see that this develops the sentence nicely. So help them help you. Use a development link, a matching verb, and then an object and complement. And this will help to add more information, more detail, and more intelligence to the whole sentence. Now we're going to practice with the green ball, so I'm going to invite you to be the ball. As I said before, don't feel that you have to chase the ball or race with the ball, but use the ball as a means of focusing you to deliver the sentence fully and without too much pausing and stopping. So the government changed their approach to dealing with COVID as a means of ensuring a swift end to the pandemic. We have to change our approach to addressing climate change in order to avoid serious consequences in the near future. Companies may have to change their approach to recruiting and training staff during the pandemic so as to adapt to the new challenges facing businesses today. So there you see the teacher just stumbled a little bit. The government will need to adapt its approach to tackling homelessness in order to help those who are most in need of accommodation. And those often means people. Instead of saying those people, we just say those. That's a very mature language usage there. You should copy that. Okay? Britain had to change its approach to sourcing new export markets as a means of maintaining their manufacturing base and preventing a rise in unemployment. So sourcing new export markets, that means finding new places to sell their markets. Maintaining, fancy schmancy version of keep, and their manufacturing base, their factories, their industry, and preventing a rise in unemployment. Society may need to change its approach to ensuring personal data is protected in order to reduce the incidence of identity theft. So the incidence means how often something happens. Prime Minister didn't like the way she was treating them. That was a big part, that wasn't the only reason, but it was a significant contributing factor to why Margaret Thatcher had to resign. So Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher should have changed her approach to dealing with her cabinet so as to avoid any attempt at a vote of no confidence. A vote of no confidence is when the government or the opposition say, "You're rubbish, get off," and they vote you out. They can vote you out as well, and then you kind of have to resign, really. Okay? Should in the past uses should, have, and look. Here it's not changed like all the others. Here we have the past participle has to be used after have. So I have be, was, were, been. I have see, saw, seen. I have go, went, gone. I have changed, changed. Okay? So Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher should have changed. The farming community may be forced to change their approach to producing food in the future in order to be more in sync with nature. In sync with is a nice phrase, means in balance with, in harmony with. And lastly, food companies really should be forced to change their approach to labelling and packaging their products so as not to mislead consumers and to reduce waste going to landfill. So you see here, if there's and, it will follow the same verb pattern as its earlier partner. So, for example, as a means of maintaining their manufacturing base and preventing a rise in unemployment, so as to adapt to the new challenges facing businesses today. So you could say, if you want to use a verb after new challenges, then you just use verb ing. So you can practice these sentences now. You can listen back on the recording to the way I say it. You can speak along with me and the ball, and then you can turn down the volume and do it yourself. But you should try to get some practice, firstly by speaking these sentences and then by writing them out, and you'll be good to go. That's all from me. The very best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.